I'm grateful that now we're finding more people who are talking about this. But I'm also really sad that there are folks that still are not understanding what kind of questions and signs that they need to be looking for. And that there still is this stigma that it is not okay to not be okay.
I wish there were better answers to why people feel the way that they feel about this stuff, because like I find it extremely therapeutic to just talk about it, because the more you talk about it, the more you can like just see how people feel the same way, or see how you may differ from someone else.
People don't want to talk about mental health and or suicide because at the end of the day, they feel very alone. They feel like that no one else knows what they're experiencing, and that's it. No, there are people that have that similar mindset or have similar thoughts. And I think by going to those support groups, you really understand that you're not in this alone. That people are feeling this, and that puts some normalization on the situation. And to feel normalized is ultimately helps the conversation.
I think if I got to a crisis point right now in my life at almost 39 years old, I have resources. I have a lot of really supportive friends right now that I could say, I'm feeling suicidal, can you come stay with me? Can you be in my apartment? Can you talk and listen to me? You know, it wouldn't be comfortable, it wouldn't be pretty, but I could get through it.
I had an attempt right before COVID, and one of my best friends, like I didn't tell anyone, no one found out. It was just like, I just woke up and I was like, all right, so it didn't work, cool, great. And then I was like upset that it didn't work, and then I was also upset that now I have to like deal with the burden of like, okay, well I tried this again, I told myself I wasn't gonna do it, but I still did.
You know, I intended to not wake up, and I woke up in the hospital, let's say maybe like 4 or 5 days later, because I, was comatose for a couple days, and I remember not knowing where I was for a moment because there's just all these bright lights, and also I have really, really terrible eyesight, and obviously they had taken my contacts out, so I was just like, where the hell am I? And then I kind of sort of remembered what had happened, and I remember the first thing that I said was I saw my mother and I said, "Are you mad at me?" Which is, I think, very telling.
I've had years of feeling guilty. But we did have like a little spat right before she left, and that was the last time I saw her. I was actually in the middle of an exam for the end of my semester. I remember talking to my parents at the time. I could tell something was different from their voice. So I get back to my apartment, still feeling weird with the conversation that I had. I call them again, and they were still acting weird. I then tried calling Mary, no answer. So then I called them, asked them, and that's where I was told my sister had done what she did. My dad got the call while at a client party, and my mom and my dad were coming back from a client party, I should say, and my dad had to pull over to the side of the road, and my mom and him were just screaming in a parking lot. So to live with that image too was very difficult. Afterwards, people treated me as like a sad case. Didn't really want to be around me as much because of everything that I was experiencing. Suicide and depression and anxiety and anything regarding mental health is still very much a taboo thing to talk about, even if we've come so far.
I was lucky enough that like I had people around me, and I guess a friend that just showed up at the right time that just kind of was like, hey, chill out with all that. And then like I had a support system around me for the next, I still have that support system, but they like were there to make sure I was good, like checking on me every single day, making sure I was fine. I think back about it now, like at the age that I was at, the stuff that I went through, I'm really like surprised that I did make it to where I am. Now it's like easy for me to talk about. Back then I was scared to talk about it. Even like with my mom, I was scared to talk. Like she didn't, it was a year before my mom even know that I tried to do anything to myself before like I said anything to her about it.
I think being aware is a choice. I do this thing, and where it's just it's a it's a check-in, you know, and it's just a real simple thing, you know. I just kind of take a moment, and if I haven't heard from a couple people in my life, I just send random I love yous. That's it. I have a random, you know, just kind of I love you. It's not about receiving the words back, but I think that sometimes someone just needs to know that someone is loving them. And so that's kind of how I learned to sort of live my life, is that just to really always have constant check-ins. And then also just be very honest. My promise, and I made a promise that I would stay. So that's that.
I don't want to put like a pressure on anyone's situation, but no one is as alone as they think that they are, because there's always someone else that's there for them and that will be there for them. You just have to reach out and find them, or let them find you.
Your pain is not an inconvenience. People have to understand that. Your pain is not an inconvenience. Somebody needs to hear that you're not okay. And I beg anybody who's listening to this to know that somebody cares that your pain is causing you pain, and that your pain is not an inconvenience.
I want to take away the shame of it. I want people to be able to say, this is a thing that I'm living with, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we need to normalize it the same way that someone, you know, with diabetes needs to manage insulin, the same way someone with a blood pressure problem needs to take a pill for that. Just, it's a thing that people have. And it can be scary, but it doesn't have to be.